Eureka by Mark Rubin. When I was a kid, I used to play with marbles, and that led me down a path so that I imagined a machine that could potentially spin around forever. I knew that it wouldn't work, but I made it anyway just for fun. It's fun to imagine systems. In this presentation, I'm going to show you a model of how all systems work. I always wanted to explain my approach for modeling systems to other people, but I never could. The main obstacle to explaining this stuff is that the more complex models exist in a part of my mind that doesn't have access to words. When I imagine simple pictures or ideas, I'm able to find the words that match them. This part of my mind has a spatial language. For me, it's always been something that I kept to myself because it's too hard to explain. But a few years ago, I saw a way to explain it. So I'll start at the beginning. When I imagine complex systems, my mind automatically forms spatial models that show me how they hang together. This is a snapshot of a dynamic model, and it describes my view of a business system. This thing is literally impossible to explain using words because there are no words in the place where I imagine it. I knew that if I wanted to explain it, I had to convert it into another model, something that I could explain. This was a lot easier said than done. I'm only good at a few things, but one of those things is that I'm able to break down pictures into small pieces and reorganize those pieces and then put them back together in different ways. The idea here is that if you can reorganize a system, you can find new and better ways to understand it. So I imagined a business and I put a grid over the model that represents the system. And I ran through each square in the grid and I pulled it apart and I put it together and I pulled it apart and I put it together. And when I was done, I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and tried to reorganize it in so many different ways. But I found a trick or a shortcut. One of the reorganized models has the same visual pattern as rolling a marble down a ramp. And I know the words for the stuff that makes up the system of rolling a marble down a ramp. So now I knew what to call this thing. After I made it this far, I was able to write down the words and symbols that represented the system. And here it is. I'd like to point out that this is a generic model. This is not just how a business works. This picture describes how every system I ever imagined works. Just so we're completely clear, the model on the left is a snapshot of a visualization of the energy and information system that represents a business. The model on the right is a model that describes the picture on the left. I'm going to use the model on the right to remap the model of a business system into something that is easier to explain. So now I had a model of the spatial model, and I figured out that if I use this model as kind of a filter, I would be able to translate the spatial model of a business into something that I could describe using words. And if I could do that, I would finally be able to explain the idea of energy and information systems to other people. And that's exactly what I set out to do. When I was a kid, I played with marbles. They taught me a lot about how things work. In this case, they taught me the trick that I needed to go from spatial models down to words. And in the upcoming presentations, I'm going to use those words to explain how business systems work.